If you pull up the national composite map right now, and I'm looking at the raw model output for Monday morning, February 9th, it uh it doesn't look like a standard weather chart. It honestly looks more like a battlefield map where the lines are being drawn in real time.
That is the only way to describe it. You have these massive conflicting colors, deep blues and purples exiting the East Coast, and this angry dark red just expanding rapidly in the center of the country. It is visually jarring.
We are staring at a state of absolute meteorological whiplash. That is the phrase that kept coming up in the research.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we aren't just doing a quick umbrella check.
No.
We are conducting a full meteorological audit for Monday, February 9th, 2026, and, well, the chaotic week that follows.
And we really need to do that audit because the volatility is the hazard. When the atmosphere moves this fast, shifting from extreme cold to extreme heat, things break. Infrastructure stresses, biology gets confused, and, human health takes a hit. We've got a stack of reports here from the Weather Prediction Center, fire weather outlooks, and hydrological assessments. And really, we're tracking two dominant stories that are colliding. Story number one, a massive, deceptive false spring that is confusing the biology of the Central U.S.
And story number two, a high-impact storm system that is basically reloading the gun in the Pacific Northwest, targeting the Cascades and Northern Rockies.
And trapped in the middle are millions of people trying to figure out if they need a parka or a t-shirt. Let's start with the heat, because this February Sizzler is statistically wild. I'm looking at the temperature anomaly charts for the northern and central plains, and we are seeing deviations of 35, maybe 40 degrees Fahrenheit above the historical average.
That is a massive statistical outlier. You usually see deviations of 10, maybe 15 degrees. 40 degrees is a different signal entirely. It's off the charts.
So walk us through the mechanics here. How do we go from the polar vortex impacts we saw just 48 hours ago to this thermal spike?
It's a textbook case of thermal disequilibrium. We have a high-amplitude ridge of high pressure that has parked itself over the Intermountain West and the Great Plains. But it's not just the high pressure sitting there, it's the vertical movement of the air that really matters.
Okay, this is where that term adiabatic warming comes into play, right? I saw that flagged in the technical discussion.
Exactly. It's the secret ingredient. Think of the atmosphere like a bicycle pump. As air flows over the Rockies from the west and descends down the eastern slope, the leeward side, it gets compressed. The atmospheric column is literally being squeezed.
And basic physics. When you compress a gas, it heats up.
Precisely. The rate is actually very specific and calculable. For every 1,000 feet that air descends, it warms up by about 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So the air is literally being pressurized into heat before it even hits the ground. It's a mechanical warming process, not just the sun is out.
And usually in February, you'd have a blanket of snow in the Dakotas or Nebraska to reflect that sunlight and cool things down. But looking at the snow cover maps, there's nothing there.
That's the feedback loop we call the LBO effect, or in this case, the lack of it. Because the snow melted during the last warm spell, the bare ground absorbs the solar radiation, radiates it back up as heat, and the downslope wind just adds to it. That is why we are forecasting record-breaking warmth, not just mild weather.
It's fascinating physics, but it brings a serious risk. I'm seeing critical fire weather warnings popping up on the screen for the plains. It feels incredibly counterintuitive to talk about fire danger in early February.
It does, but you have to look at the relative humidity values. The air descending off the Rockies isn't just hot, it's bone dry. We're seeing humidity levels plunging into the 10 to 15% range across the high plains.
That is desert-level dryness.
And you have all this dormant winter vegetation, dead grass, dry brush that has been, freeze-dried by the cold you just had. Now you flash heat it. It's basically standing kindling.
So if you are west of the I-35 corridor, the Texas Panhandle, western South Dakota, the atmosphere is just primed for combustion.
Absolutely. One spark from a dragging trailer chain or a tossed cigarette, and you have a grass fire moving at 30 or 40 miles per hour because of the wind. The fuel moisture levels are critically low.
Let's drill down into the specific city impacts for Monday, February 9th. If I'm waking up in the southern plains, what does this actually look like? Dallas, for example.
Dallas is going to feel confused. You're looking at highs anywhere from 62 to 68 degrees, but there is some model divergence here. Some of the short-range models suggest that if the cloud cover breaks early, Dallas could pop all the way up to 81 degrees.
Wow, that is a huge variance for a 24-hour forecast.
It is, but that's typical in these transition seasons. You're on the razor's edge of the heat ridge. If the sun breaks through, you bake.
Okay, now Houston looks messier. I'm seeing a dense fog advisory flagged for the morning commute.
Right. Houston has the heat, but it also has the Gulf of Mexico right next door. That warm, moist air is advecting moving horizontally over the cooler ground. That creates a thick soup. Visibility could be under a quarter mile for the morning drive.
But once that burns off,
You are looking at a humid 81 degrees. In early February, it's going to feel incredibly muggy.
meanwhile, San Antonio and Austin are just cruising in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, it's going to feel like late April in central Texas. But while they are enjoying brunch on the patio, the East Coast is living in a completely different reality.
Let's pivot to the Northeast, because this is where the whiplash title really applies. The East is currently clawing its way out of a deep freeze, but the transition isn't smooth.
No, this is the retreating Arctic high. The core of that brutal sub-zero air mass is finally shifting offshore into the Atlantic. But we have to remember, cold air is heavy. It's dense. It behaves like molasses.
Makes them want to move.
It likes to sit in the valleys and low-lying areas. So even though the upper atmosphere is warming up, the surface is still shaking off the chill. This is what we call cold air damming in some regions, though here it's mostly just residual cold.
So for a commuter in New York City on Monday morning, February 9th, don't be fooled by the forecast eye.
Do not. New York will eventually recover to a high of 38 to 45 degrees, which sounds balmy compared to yesterday. But, and this is critical, you are starting the day with wind chills between -5 and -10 degrees.
That is a dangerous spread. You step out the door thinking warming trend and get hit with sub-zero wind chill.
Exposed skin is still at risk in those early hours. The wind is still howling from the exit of that high-pressure system.
Philadelphia looks even more extreme. I'm looking at the hourly graph here. This curve is almost vertical.
Philly is going to see one of the most dramatic swings in the country. They are starting in the freezer, but because of that southwesterly flow kicking in later, they could shoot all the way up to near 58 degrees by the afternoon.
That's nearly a 60-degree swing if you factor in the wind chill recovery.
It is massive thermal stress. And Boston is lagging a bit behind, highs of 36 to 44 degrees, but your morning wind chills are still going to be waiting below 20 degrees for sure.
You mentioned thermal stress. I want to deep dive into that for a second. We talk about how this feels on the skin, but what does a swing like that do to the built environment?
It wreaks havoc. We call this the thaw risk. Materials expand and contract at different rates. The ground shifts. Old cast iron water mains in the mid-Atlantic. They hate this. I would expect a significant number of water main breaks in the Philly to NYC corridor over the next 38 hours.
And then there are the rivers. The Hudson and the Delaware have significant ice on them right now.
And a rapid thaw breaks that integrity. This is a classic setup for ice jams. The ice doesn't just melt away nicely, it fractures into massive chunks. Those chunks flow downstream, get stuck at a bridge abutment or a bend in the river, and suddenly you have a dam.
And the water backs up behind it instantly.
Right. It's a localized flood hazard that people forget about. You might be nowhere near the ocean, but if you're upstream of an ice jam on the Delaware, you could see water rising into your basement on Monday.
One more hazard for the Northeast and Upper Midwest before we move on. The roads. We have this note here about black ice recurrency.
Yeah, this is vital for the drivers.
Yeah.
Specifically on untreated secondary roads. You get that strong February sun during the day melting the snow. The water runs across the road. But the ground underneath the asphalt, it's still frozen solid. It acts like a freezer plate.
So the water has nowhere to go.
It pools. And the second the sun sets Monday evening, that water turns into a sheet of glass. It's not the white snow you can see. It's transparent black ice. Monday night, driving in the interior, northeast, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, is going to be treacherous.
Okay, let's head west. We've got a real split-screen situation on the Pacific coast. The Southwest is basically on vacation, and the Northwest is about to get hammered.
It's the calm before the trough for the Southwest.
Right.
Phoenix, you are looking at near record heat, 85 degrees. Los Angeles is also basking in this spring-like warmth, 81 to 83 degrees downtown.
It sounds picturesque.
It is, but it's a setup. It's high pressure holding firm before the storm door opens.
And that door is already open for Seattle and Portland.
Totally different world. A second shortwave trough is arriving, and this one is loaded with moisture. This is the active sector. Seattle will be mostly cloudy and dry for a chunk of Monday, maybe reaching 46 to 50 degrees, but the rain is incoming.
But looking at the alerts, the rain isn't the main headline for Monday. It's the snow in the mountains. We have a significant mountain snow alert.
A major one. We are looking at the Cascades, the Blue Mountains, and the northern Rockies, Idaho, western Montana, Wyoming. The probability charts from the Weather Prediction Center are lighting up. There is a greater than 70% chance of at least 8 inches of snow.
And in the high terrain.
We could see 1 to 2 feet locally.
And this isn't just ski resort snow, this is logistics nightmare snow.
Because the freezing levels are dropping. We're seeing snow levels come down to 3,000 or 4,000 feet by Tuesday morning. That puts Snoqualmie Pass, Stevens Pass, even parts of I-90 through Idaho at risk.
So if you're a trucker or you're road tripping Monday night,
Don't. Or bring chains and expect delays. You're talking whiteout conditions and rapid accumulation. The visibility will be near zero.
okay, we've covered the mechanics. Now, I want to do something for the listeners who are packing a bag right now. They've got a flight, a meeting, a school run. Let's do a rapid-fire data check for Monday, February 9th. All throughout the city, you give me the headline and the numbers.
Let's do it.
Chicago.
Overcast and raw. Highs 42 to 50 degrees, but don't be fooled. Winds from the southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour will keep the wind chill biting. It's a collar-up kind of day.
Denver?
A classic Colorado gem. Sunny and mild, 52 to 58 degrees. Breezy with west winds coming off the mountains. You'll see people in shorts.
Detroit and Milwaukee.
You're stuck in the cold sector. Freezing temps, low 30s for Detroit. High 20s for Milwaukee. Watch out for potential freezing drizzle. That's the stuff that creates invisible slick spots on bridges.
Let's go south. Jacksonville, Florida.
Pleasant recovery, 68 to 74 degrees. There's a 30% chance of showers, so keep an umbrella handy, but it's not a washout. Recovery mode, highs near 60. The ice from last week is finally just a bad memory. Roads are clear.
Miami.
Business as usual, warm, 78 degrees. High UV index of 5. Don't forget the sunscreen.
And back to the West Coast, San Diego.
Beautiful, 75 to 78 degrees, sunny. Enjoy it.
San Jose.
Pleasant for now, 66 to 72 degrees. But you are effectively in the waiting room for the midweek storm.
And that brings us to the what's next. This is where the deep dive really pays off. We've looked at Monday, but if I look at the long-range models for February 10th through the 15th, things get complicated quickly.
The pattern is shifting gears. By Tuesday and Wednesday, we have 2 main players entering the field. First, up north, we have a clipper system.
Clippers are those fast-moving, moisture-starved systems, right?
Usually.
Right.
They move along the U.S.-Canadian border. This one will drop a light wintry mix across the Great Lakes and the interior northeast Burlington, Vermont, Portland, Maine. It's nuisance weather, not a blockbuster, but enough to mess up the evening commute.
But the bigger story seems to be out west. You mentioned San Jose is waiting. What are they waiting for?
They are waiting for the atmospheric river. By Tuesday night into Wednesday, a modest atmospheric river moves into California.
Now, when we say modest, what kind of water volume are we talking about?
We are forecasting 1 to 2 inches of rain for coastal and valley areas. In the terrain, isolated 3-inch totals.
For a healthy forest, that's a nice drink of water, but California isn't entirely a healthy forest right now.
Exactly. We have to talk about burn scars. This is the critical risk assessment for Tuesday.
This is a specific risk factor that I think people overlook. Explain what happens when rain hits a burn scar.
It's physics again. Intense heat from wildfires creates a waxy layer in the soil. It makes the soil hydrophobic. It literally repels water like a raincoat.
So the ground can't absorb anything.
Zero absorption. That 2 inches of rain doesn't soak in. It runs off instantly, picks up ash, rocks, trees. So even a modest storm can trigger debris flows and flash flooding if it hits the wrong spot.
So if you live near a recent burn scar in Central or Southern California, Tuesday night is your alert window.
Absolutely. Have your go bag ready. Do not wait for the mud to start moving.
Now fast forward to the end of the week, Friday through Sunday. The models are hinting at something much bigger than this modest river.
This is the major pattern shift. The models are locking onto a massive winter storm for the West.
How massive?
The Sierra Nevada is looking at a high risk of heavy snow. We're talking 24 inches plus. Feet of snow between February 15th and 16th.
That is incredible news for the snowpack and the reservoirs.
It's great for the drought monitor, but dangerous for travel. At the same time, we're watching the IVT, the Integrated Vapor Transport.
That's the metric for how much moisture is flowing in the sky, right? Like a river in the atmosphere.
Exactly. The IVT values are rising significantly. That means more moisture pumping into the coast. We could see urban and small stream flooding stretching from the Bay Area all the way down to SoCal later in the week.
So the tranquility in LA on Monday is basically a deception.
It's a trap. The storm door is opening wide.
I want to zoom out for a second. We've got this false spring in the east, this atmospheric river in the west. Why is the atmosphere behaving this way? What is the puppet master here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to talk about the MJO,
Yeah.
the Madden-Julian oscillation.
The MJO, we love the MJO on the show. It's like the heartbeat of the tropics.
It is. It's a pulse of cloud and rainfall that circles the globe along the equator. Right now, its specific location is forcing a reaction in the jet stream. It's helping to kick that stubborn cold out of the east and allowing the heat ridge to expand.
Basically, the MJO is pressing the reset button on the pattern. But what about La Nina? We've been talking about La Nina all winter. Is she still in the driver's seat?
She's there, but she's losing her grip. We are in a weak or neutralizing La Nina phase.
And that creates chaos.
It does. A strong La Nina gives us a predictable pattern. Cool north, warm south, very rigid. But because it's weakening, the jet stream is wobbly, the guardrails are off. That's why we're seeing this volatility, this whiplash effect where we swing from extreme to extreme.
That makes sense. A weak La Nina is like a substitute teacher. The atmosphere starts acting out.
That's actually a pretty accurate analogy. The containment is gone.
So, bringing it all back home, we've covered the heat, the cold, the fire, and the flood. If you had to summarize the state of the nation for February 9th, 2026, what is the headline?
The U.S. is caught in the transition zone. We are between the dying breaths of a historic Arctic freeze and the aggressive expansion of a midwinter heat ridge. It's a moment of high energy and high contrast.
And high risk if you aren't paying attention.
Exactly. While we celebrate the warmth in the east, and believe me, after -15 wind chills, 58 degrees feels like a miracle, the volatility is the real story.
It's the swing that hurts.
It strains everything. Human health. Our bodies hate rapid pressure and temperature changes. It strains concrete, asphalt, pipes, and it creates a psychological trap where we think winter is over right before the next system hits.
Which raises the final question, is this atmospheric whiplash the new normal for the rest of the month? Are we just going to bounce between extremes?
The week 2 outlook suggests yes. The pattern of extremes stacking on top of each other looks likely to persist through the end of February.
Well, that is something to mull over while you enjoy your 60-degree day in Philly or your 80-degree day in LA.
And for our listeners in the West, use Monday. Use this calm weather. Clear the gutters, check your tires. The storm track is opening up later in the week, and you won't want to be prepping when the rain starts falling sideways.
Good advice as always. Stay safe, watch the ice melt, and enjoy the sun where you have it. We'll be back with another deep dive as the pattern evolves.
Stay weather aware, everyone.